This is Conversations with Ronnie Keith. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. This is another episode of Conversations with Ronnie Keith. I am your host, Ronnie Keith. First off, again, I want to thank you guys so much for your support, for everything that you guys have been doing, downloading, supporting the show. Hit a milestone just today. Well, as I record this, with 5,000 downloads since I just started this podcast with me and my wife from time to time as she joins, and I just want to say thank you guys so much. That's a lot asking you guys to sit here and support one show that I've been doing for a few years on Tuesdays, the Short Desk Podcast, and now another show, but they're two different shows. This show here is where I sit down with extraordinary people from all over walks of life and talk with them and have a conversation, interview them. And so I do thank you for committing your Fridays to listening to me and whoever my special guest is. Um, I don't want to run down all the cities that have downloaded us, but I do want to give a shout out to Australia, Ukraine, France, Japan, Germany, and the United States. Um, all you guys have been downloading the show. St. Kitts and Nevis, United Kingdom, Canada, Philippines, St. Lucia, Sweden, Romania, Virgin Islands, St. Martin, the French part, as it says here, and 90 different cities have downloaded Conversations with Ronnie Keith. And I really, really appreciate it. So thank you guys so much. Today is a special treat. I had to bring back Morehouse brother number one and Morehouse brother number 1B. I'll let them, they 1A, 1B. I'll let them talk it out of who's 1A and who's 1B. But I have the pleasure of sitting down today to talk with Rock and Dr. Professor Antwann. How you guys are doing this evening, gentlemen? How's everything going?
Doing good, man. I'm gonna bow down to the professor. I be 1B. I'm okay with it.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Well, I appreciate both of you brothers taking the time out to sit down and talk with me. And, we have some dialogue here about what's going on. As usual, whenever we get together, it is always a great time. So I just appreciate the many conversations that I've had with you all individually. And the last time that you guys both were on collectively, episode 26, which was a conversation about Black America, that was last year. And so had to bring you guys back. We've had a lot happen in the last 2 weeks. We have a new president that was sworn in on Martin Luther King Day, and that was Donald J. Trump. He is back in the office, and as soon as he got in the office, he wasted no time in signing dozens of executive orders, including ending birthright, citizenship, pardons for January 6 rioters, and withdrawing from the Paris Climate Accord. He's also signed actions eliminating DEI and gender radicalism from the United States military. Just a lot of different things that he has signed in order. And most of them happen to seem like in the first day, but over a span of time, again, we're in week 2 that he's done. And so I want to talk with both of you about the impacts of these executive orders, the impact of him being in office, and what that looks like for not only America, but more importantly, as we're talking here, Black America. So let me start off with you, Rock. I know that you've witnessed what's been going on with some of the executive orders that have gone into play, and some of the conversations that's been happening collectively, either online or maybe in person with people that you know. How are you feeling with this first 2 weeks with President Trump making so many decisions and things happening in office?
Right. My first thoughts were, I wish Democrats went as hard for their base as Republicans go for their base, because Trump
Mm,
came in swinging like a bull in a china shop. letting it be known what it is. I said I was going to do this stuff, even if some of the stuff won't pass, because like the 14th Amendment, I doubt that'll get through courts. A few other things I doubt it'll get through courts, but I guess like at least he's doing it. Like hey, he's appealing to his base. He said he's going to do it, and he at least tried to do it. Democrats, man, a lot of times they kind of pump fake, and I'm like, if y'all just go hard like this, um, for us, quote unquote, the way that they go, the Republicans go for their base. I feel like we would make more progress, but but yeah. So that was the first thought, just that. And then of course, being in Black America, a lot of the DEI stuff has kind of been like the talk of the town. I'm sure we go circle back to that later on. I have not my thoughts with DEI aren't 100% in line. I'm not as outraged about the DEI stuff, but but not because I think it should be dismantled and dismissed. We just weren't getting I feel like we weren't getting our fair share of it. Like they'll use Black people's pain, strifes, and struggles in history to get this stuff funded and pushed over the line and presented. And then when it's time to get policies and resources, we kind of like the last one getting our slice of the pie, if we get a slice of the pie. So I don't know. So like I got mixed feelings about DEI. I'm sure we go jump until later on. But of course they trying to get us all riled up to be the face of rallying, and I'm like, well, we weren't even getting, what are white women at? Like they was winning off of DEI and all of that. So yeah, so I got mixed feelings about it. I know we need it, but I just feel like we need to negotiate a better cut than what we were getting. So before we kind of just throw our lives on the line to get it back and put it right back in place when it wasn't really serving us to the extent that it should have. So
right. And I think from a standpoint, I mean, it depends on who you are, but you can argue that that's how we got here to begin with, is that the Democrats were not going into putting pen to action as hard as they should, as we've seen Trump and the Republicans do these last 8 days. You know what I mean? And that may be why the polling turned out the way it did. Antwann, what are your thoughts on what we've seen, and then also what Rock has had to say so far?
Well, I mean, what we've seen in terms of the well, first of all, I agree with Morehouse brother number one. I'm never going to disagree with him. Let me just get.
You're smarter than me. You
Let's just
know
get
a whole lot more than me.
Not really.
Let me know if I'm wrong. I'm free to be corrected.
But the stuff that we've seen in the first 2 weeks is actually not surprising, right? They had already laid out the plan, and that plan was Project 2025, right? Like which is something that they had been trying to do since the 70s anyway, right? If you follow the history of the project, it's just an adaptation from the Reagan era. Well, a little bit before the Reagan era. That's why they brought Reagan in to be a puppet, because he can't think. But that's another story for another day. But nonetheless, it's really no surprise. Exactly, what Rock was saying is they're doing exactly what they said they were going to do, and they're going hard for their base. Now, in the point that they're going hard for their base, it shows you how ignorant their base is, because their base is willing to chop off their own feet, to keep someone else from running, right? So it's just like, we've seen a deluge of white folk complaining and crying about, when he signed that stuff, with the federal program, they were crying about SNAP, Section 8, and all of these other different things. Well, yes, that's a problem. And, white lady jumped on, social media and was crying about her British husband being deported, and another guy, his Venezuelan wife. And, they really thought that the Trump pass was really going to do something for them when, you got on board with Project 2025. You thought that meant everybody but you. And for some reason, they thought that this whiteness could be bequeathed to their partners, even to the white dude from the UK, when whiteness, as it's rendered in the United States, has to be American-based instead of UK-based, right? There's a reason for the Revolutionary War. So all of the things that we've seen, hey, they told us that they were going to do it. And now I will say the one thing that I am proud of in this hour is I am proud of Black folks. I've never seen us collectively mind our own damn business.
Mm-hmm.
I just, now there are those who are elected, such as Jasmine Crockett, right? And it's her job to speak out about these things. That's literally what she's been voted into office to do. But by large and far, you don't really see this panic inset from Black people, because we have finally acknowledged at this point in time um, that this is not our battle. We've done the work. I mean, what else do you
Right.
want? We gave you the civil rights movement, we gave you Black Power movement, Black arts movement, right? We went through the 90s, we got affirmative action, y'all took that away. Right? Like, we
Right.
did all of this work. And to Rock's point, it is really what took place with George Floyd that got DEI going in earnest, right? Like Trayvon Martin kind of sort of, Sandra Bland, it was kind of like it was building, but George Floyd took it over the hill, if you will. And we all knew it
Mhm.
wasn't going to last that long. And then,
Right.
here we are now. If anything, what's shocking to me, right, and I'll shut up after this, is when Biden had the caucasity to pardon
Hmm.
Marcus Garvey.
Mm.
That sent me to, I was like, huh?
Symbolic.
I'm like, what is this? Like that you're gonna, pardon Marcus Garvey, after all of these years and what he attempted to do for Black people. And I thought that was really interesting. It definitely was symbolic. But to this point of, all these white folks saying, get out of our country, get out of our country, get out of our country. Okay, well, we tried to do that, and when we tried to do that, they realized that the economy was leaving, that the technological advancement was leaving, right? That the people who worked the hotels was leaving. That was all our jobs, and that's why they put us behind in prison. But I think for Biden to pardon Garvey was a slap in the face, and I'll leave that there. Okay, I'm done.
Yeah. He didn't even get Fannie Willis, and she was the one in Atlanta putting her life on the line, being the face of this whole Trump case in Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
And he left her out there high and dry. All of that fell apart, and none of them out there to step up and help him out.
But can we be surprised that
Oh
Biden?
no,
I mean, do we
no,
not realize who he was as a senator?
man, I'm not surprised. I don't know why. There's a magical thing that happens when a person becomes the Democratic nominee for president. For some reason, with Black people, a lot of them just forget or start
Mhm.
excusing and defending all of their prior actions. And
Mm.
that's exactly what they did with Joe Biden. And I'm like, y'all do know he's still the same exact guy he been. And he showed it on that phone call that leaked with Al Sharpton and all of them. He hadn't changed.
Hell, he
But
showed it at the Breakfast Club.
there you go. Yeah. So, but people, I get it. It was the lesser of two evils, I guess. And um, and people just so. But he's shown he is who he's always been. And I mean, hey, what can you do, man? Oh, hey, look, Antwann, to your point about all of these companies after George Floyd, they was kind of pump faking. They really was. It was kind of like changing your icon to the rainbow in June. That's all they were
Hmm.
doing. They was trying to act like they was down for the cause or whatnot. So they created all these programs to which a lot of Black people came up during those times. A lot of middle management Black people came up as far as like new positions and making money. But the companies themselves, um, if they didn't have those DEI programs established well in advance or beforehand, or if it wasn't something in the fabric of the company that they was already doing and making it a point to get a certain percentage or reach out to people who maybe not as represented prior to 2020, and then they suddenly did it in 2020. I knew it wasn't going to last. It was only a matter of time before the shoe dropped, and it's been dropping for the last few years. Now Trump just came in and just kicked it all down, but one by one, the last few years, the company's been announcing that they're dropping programs left and right. So it's just getting louder now because of the Trump part, the Trump aspect. But it's been happening. It's been
Yeah.
happening.
So just to jump on the DEI thing, right? Diversity and what is it called? Diversity and
Equity and
equity and
inclusion.
inclusion. Yeah.
Hmm.
So these things have happened. He laid down a law about that. It's being kicked out. And I guess, and I kind of talked about this on the Short Disc podcast as well. a lot of people have said, "Oh, well, I'm boycotting this place. I'm boycotting this place," since they rolling back the DEI initiative and programs. Well, I have a couple of things to say about that, and you guys let me know. First part about that is, as you guys kind of touched on earlier, I don't believe it was really beneficial for us as much as it was for white women, Asians, Latinos, and all the others. I think, there was an issue. What was it, back in Harvard? Correct me if I'm
Mm-hmm.
wrong. Where the Chinese, was it the Chinese
It was a collective of Asian folks.
Yeah,
collective
Asian.
Asian? Okay,
Yeah.
that they had, a problem with it when that was essentially how they were getting into Harvard. Um, and to see these things happen, it's like, okay, I don't know if it's because we've had to fight for this our whole life, and I've never, DEI was like, okay, but I don't think it really benefited us as much as what I just named. And then also on that side, when you hear people saying, well, I'm going to boycott this place, I'm going to boycott Walmart, I'm going to boycott Target, I'm going to boycott this place. Okay, that's cool and all if you decide to do that because they've rolled back. But what about the product that you're actually buying, that the figureheads behind these companies have donated millions and millions of dollars to not only Trump but also the Republican Party? Are you going to boycott the actual product? I think people get so caught up in what's trendy, you know what I mean? And not really understanding the logic of what they're saying. Because okay, yeah, you're probably going to say, oh, well, you know what? I'm going to stop shopping at Target. I'm going to stop shopping at Walmart. But are you going to stop buying that Marita bread?
Mm.
You know they're not. You know they're
Are
not.
you going to are you going to stop supporting Tyson's Foods? Like, where are you going to stop buying from Coca-Cola, Pepsi? I'm not saying that they have contributed, but there are a lot of these companies and their figureheads, their CEOs as a whole have contributed to these candidates. So where I'm trying to understand what the logic is in our people when they
Hmm.
make these statements. So I'll turn that over to you guys with that conversation.
Hey, real quick, Antwann. Let me just. I just want to. It's a striking similarity in how in 2020 the companies, like I could just mention, the companies in a response to what's going on in the moment, it's a racist moment, and they want to go out and establish these programs that they should have already been establishing. That should have already been established in the companies, right?
Mm-hmm.
In a similar manner, I seen a whole lot of black folks in response to another racist moment, right? Now they suddenly want to boycott and go and support black businesses. They're passing around, hey, can somebody send me a list of all of the black businesses? When the truth is, just like the companies, it should have been built into your everyday, your fabric. You should have been doing this anyway. This isn't something
Mm-hmm.
that you just choose to do because George Floyd got killed on camera. This isn't something that you like black folks. This isn't something you choose to do because Trump in office right now. If you're gonna support black businesses, then do it. You shouldn't have to wait until something racist happened, or Kaepernick started kneeling or something like that. If you're gonna do it, then do it. And same with the companies. If y'all are gonna do these initiatives, then you should do it. And I know a good number of companies that's been doing it. This it was already uh, uh, a part of the company for years and then like decades. I know I don't want to give myself away, but my company, a couple my wife mentioned. So I know of those who've been doing it, and then of course the ones that popped up to do it because it was a thing to do. So yeah, it was just a striking similarity between black folks' response to racism and these corporate 500 companies response to racism. Suddenly, everybody want to pretend to support black people. So that was all. My bad. You got it, Twan.
Well, no, I mean, you're right on, right? I don't even think it's necessarily. I don't ever think that it was ever about black people. It has always been about the capacity to generate revenue, right? And so long as George Floyd's death was profitable, right? then they could do something about it. So it became a flag of, hey, look at us. We are hiring black folk, right? We're hiring brown folks, whomever it may be. And so therefore it drives more people into the store. So in this particular way, this is going to sound morbid, but it becomes true within the corporate context that George Floyd becomes more valuable in his death than he is in his living. Right. So
Mm.
it is the particular ways in which corporate America squeezes the very life out of you, even when you're laying dead on the ground. And then once all of that has been rendered out, then they're allowed to bury you. And so that's what we're seeing taking place now, right, in terms of DEI. And it does map onto instances, like the collective of Asian students at Harvard University who was like, hey, we can't get in because you're letting too many black people in. That was quite literally their claim. And, once that went through the courts found in their favor. Well, what happened? They came back and Asian numbers at the school actually went down and black numbers stayed the same. And this is what you get from playing white folks games, right?
Right.
I forget, what was the original question?
Well, I was also asking, why do black people always want to take, such a stand against
Uh-huh.
boycotting these places when, if you really want to dive into it, it's the product. You know what I mean? You're not buying black owned product, not
Mm-hmm.
everything you're buying, and you don't know who these companies are. So why is it always, we're always the loudest when it comes to things like this on social media? And I just want to know, do people really, are we doing our research? Are we doing our homework, on these things?
This one, honestly, I'm with Rock, right? And this is why he's Morehouse brother number one. That these things should be woven into the fabric of Black folks, right? Like, where are you buying your soap from? What just the things that you get. Is there a Black owned grocery market like in your area? Fortunately, like for me, I'm really close to Lamert Park, so that's easy to resolve, right? But we do have to come up with mechanisms and ways and means of doing this in our everyday, because right now, I hope no one writes you and says this is anti-Semitic, but it is what it is. Jewish
Mhm.
folks are not having this problem.
Mm-mm.
You understand what I'm saying? So
Mhm.
when something happens to Jewish folk, when they come to the news with it, they're not saying we are going to protest this place. They're saying we want this right here done and we want this done right now. Whereas for Black folk, we are more as a populace, we are more content with, can you just give us some space on the shelf, as opposed to
Mhm.
owning the shelf. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And so that's something to think about and through. And I think one of the folks, oh, this is going to sound horrible.
Come
One
on
of
with
the
it.
folks that, we have to, and he came to this conclusion toward the end of his life, but one of the folks that we have to look back and think through this about is MLK, right? And
Mhm.
before he passes, he says, I fear I have integrated my people into a burning house. Well,
Mm.
brother, you did. Because at the beginning of the movement, no one was asking for integration. We were simply asking that if we step into Macy's, that we don't get discriminated against, that we can get our stuff and move. Nobody was saying, I want to live next to somebody white. Nobody was saying, I want to go to a white school. We were quite
Mhm.
content in HBCUs. If you do your history close enough, and I know I'm on the line with two brothers that are deeply into sports, all the athletes were at HBCUs.
Mhm.
And it's only until the Black body became cognizable or visible to PWIs and said, oh, we can make money off of that. That's when we started getting into PWIs. But no one was asking for integration at the beginning of the civil rights movement. We were simply asking for desegregation, and that is something completely different from integration. And I think that when you are asking for integration, then that gets misconstrued as, well, not misconstrued because integration is integration, that gets translated as, I want to live next to you. I want my products on the shelf next to yours, knowing damn well that white people cannot use Black shit in their head. Like that just is what it is, right? We have
Right.
two different hair types. And so
Right.
it's like, how do we get back to the space of Because the reality of the fact is that Black America is worse off economically today than we were in the 1960s, and that is because in the 1960s we were one band, one sound. But now, the popular colloquialism is "fuck around and find out," and "fuck around and find out" we have. Because now we have to protest and say, okay, we're not going to Target, we're not going this way. And then the question, like Rock was saying, becomes, well, where do we go? Well, we should already know where to go. And had we been about the business of continuously building our communities and understanding that the white man's ice is not cooler than our own, yeah, those are my thoughts around it.
So we have had instances where people have promoted, right, us being back integrated and I guess desegregated since, but there's been pushback. I know that one person that was very popular in promoting those such ideas was Killer Mike, rapper out of Atlanta. But there was a lot of pushback from within the community saying that he did not have our best ideas at heart, and he wasn't for us, because he didn't fall in line, so to speak, with um, the 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 global pick for the Democratic candidate at that time, which was Hillary Clinton. What is your response to someone like Killer Mike, or I know, yeah, I know how you feel about him, but Dr. Umar Johnson? What is your response to those people that have been pushing this for quite a while now within the Black community?
Well, I was gonna say, Rock, go ahead and go off on Killer Mike, but oh, go ahead, Rock, go ahead.
Oh, I think Rock is giving you to go ahead. You go ahead.
Oh, okay, is that what that is?
Possibly.
Okay, so when it comes to Killer Mike, right? Like, I'm not saying Killer Mike does not have ideas, but what I'm also saying is that just because you have the mic doesn't mean you should be speaking on all issues.
Mhm.
Right? Like, I hold the microphone. I am not going to get on that microphone and start rapping. If I start rapping, I'm going to be the laughing stock of the Black community, right? You have to know where your strengths are and where your weaknesses are, and what that looks like. And so when we start talking about the direction that Black America should go in, or what should happen, etc., we have to keep in mind that Black Americans are a very diverse population, right?
Mhm.
All of us do not agree, right?
Mhm.
All of us don't necessarily disagree either. But I think what everyone agrees on is the fact that we have to do something, right? And, there is this myth that the entirety of Black America was on board with the civil rights movement. They weren't. Most Black Americans were a part of United Negro Improvement Association. That was under Marcus Garvey. Rosa Parks was a Garveyite. Malcolm X was a Garveyite. Most Black
Mhm.
Americans were Garveyites. They want Stunton King because he comes from an upwardly bound middle class family, right?
Mhm.
All that to
Mhm.
say is we are not all on the same page about what a solution looks like, and I do think that is part of the detriment, and I do think that is part of the result of just necessarily going for integration, right? But in terms of I think this generates another interesting question about who is to speak for Black America, and I think that's mm,
Well,
you
that's
know
the problem. Nobody wants to, and nobody has taken the charge. But when we've had a few, like a Killer Mike or even an Ice Cube, it's always some type of backlash, and it's just like, okay, so who's going to step up? And I get it, right? You said, you shouldn't speak to everything, but at least let's get some ideas out there. We're done with the Al Sharptons. I'm not going to say Jesse Jackson because he's really incapacitated, but we're done with that era of Black leaders.
We are in the transition period, and I do feel like there is a tug of war within Black America of who's going to be the voice who we listen to right now, right? And there is a big segment that's still trying to go along with the Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson kind of line of thinking. And
Mm-hmm.
there's another segment like pushing back, saying, which I'm of this mindset, saying, hey, we did it y'all's way. We did it your way. It's not working. We need some new voices that don't come from y'all, that don't come from your crop. We don't want anybody from over there speaking for us. We need some new voices because we did it your way. The talented 10th, the bougie, the D9s, the Harvards, the HBCU grads. We did it that way. And Black Americans are still damn near at the bottom. So it
Mm.
needs to be a new big voice. And there's a real big tug of war who that voice will be. And I see people getting blackballed because there's certain people who can't even get on V103 or get on the Breakfast Club, because a lot of times, and this is what I've seen, is that the Democratic Party got a hold on Black America in more ways than people want to admit, to the point where, like I said, you can't get on TV if you ain't down with them. You can't get on certain channels. You can't get on certain radio stations. Like name a person who is against the Democrat, a black person who is against the Democratic Party, who could get on Steve Harvey's show, Ricky Smiley's show, D.L. Hughley's show, the Breakfast Club. Now the Breakfast Club bring on alternate people. They do bring on Republicans or whatnot. But they won't bring on Tariq Nasheed for some reason. He ain't been on ever since Hillary lost. Um,
Mm.
so there is a real tug of war of Black Americans trying to figure out, who speaks for us or whatnot, and that's been going on for a while. I think pretty much since the first time that Trump won, and we really saw it in 2020 when the whole Black Lives Matter thing popped off, and you saw the ladies who kind of got to the forefront, and people was like, they're not even the ones that started it. What happened to the guys in I forgot the name of the city, but all of the guys who really started Black Lives Matter got killed off. So it's a real thing right now as far as who's who. Now, real quick, Killer Mike. I don't go as hard against Killer Mike as most people, only because from the angle of he wants to talk to whoever's in charge, right? And so he got a lot of flack for talking to Brian Kemp and all of that. And just to be trans, Killer Mike pretty much he kind of lightweight a Republican. But he black, so he can't never really come out and say that. But he kind of lightweight a Republican. But we in Georgia, we Georgia boys, we from backwoods Georgia. And to be real with you, if you ask most people, if you just ask them and don't say anything, just run down conservative values, a lot of them would be, but Republicans are racist. That's why most black people aren't. But but Killer Mike, he talks to the people in charge, and he got a lot of flack for that. And I guess black people want a lot of our leaders to just cross our arms and pout and not talk to. If the white man beat the black woman, then we ain't talking to the white man the whole time he's in office. That ain't reality. That's what the CBC did. The CBC did that last time when Trump was in office. When he got out, I hate to call him out, but Rev Warnock, Al Sharpton, and a few others posted a picture online in 2021 when Biden got back in, saying something along the lines of, "Hey, we haven't been back to the White House in 4 years. It's good to be back." Right? And I'm like, hold on, y'all got constituents. Y'all are still serving the people. How you ain't going to the White House and talking to the boss, to the man? How you not? You still got a job to do, regardless of who's in office. I mean, granted, it might be a little tougher, but you still got to do the job, and you can't just opt out of doing the job just because you don't like Trump. And I actually fear, and I think they'll catch hell this time around, if they try to do that again, where they want to just pout and not go to the White House because Trump's up there. I think they'll catch more hell this time around than they did last time, because black people still hurting. We still got stuff we need, and I ain't saying Trump go give it to us, but it's still their job to go try to get it. So that's all I got to say about it right now.
But I mean, but can they get in the White House though, right? And I at this particular point in time, like let's be real with this. Like the Third Reich is like rising very, very quickly. Elon has made that very clear. The Catholic priest who got on the diocese yesterday made that clear when he did his little Nazi salute. Like, we can't act like we don't see like what's coming here. I
Hmm.
think what's part of the problem is not necessarily that we can't gain an audience with the chief executive or whomever it may be. A part of the bigger issue for me is that we have bought in, right? So, in other words, I'm saying that what success looks like for Black folk, What thriving looks like for Black folk is white power in Black hands. And what I'm saying is our model has to look different. So that's why we can't necessarily move forward. That's why we can't necessarily have a voice, if we want to put it that way, for Black America. Because when that voice emerges, right, and that voice emerges from their own interest in the American polity within their social positioning, right? So it's like, to what extent, do the experiences of Black women become cognizable, Black gay folk, Black trans folk, Black whomever, whatever, Black poor folk, whatever your position may be, is that cognizable to someone like a King? I'll just put it, since he's come up in the conversation, like a MLK, who basically told Bayard Rustin to kiss his ass, when Bayard Rustin is the one who constructed the March on Washington, right? And if you read Stokely Carmichael's book, Close Enough, Ready for Revolution, shout out to that 700-page text. In the book, he talks about before the march, when they went to a meeting and King was already in there with the FBI negotiating, right? And how they had to, water down speeches and do all of that stuff, right? So stuff like that. And why are we coming to the table negotiating that? So when we talk about the Steve Harveys, the Ricky Smileys, and whatever other media outlet we want to talk about, first thing we have to understand is that those media outlets are not ran by Black people. Ultimately, at the top of those media outlets are white people. And what I want to redirect everyone's attention to is a moment that happened between Steve Harvey and Monique, maybe about a year or two ago. Right. And Monique was talking about integrity and different things of this sort. And Steve Harvey said, and I'm paraphrasing, basically, when money's on the table, your integrity goes out the window. This is the money game. That's what he said. And so, is that the voice that we want speaking for Black America? You know what I'm saying? And what becomes missing in that moment. So when we put all of that together and we talk about this moment of Trump and how he is, if you ask me, a domestic threat to the United States, if you ask me, that's just me, right? When you pair that with Trump, what Elon Musk is trying to do, what Kash Patel will do if he gets in, definitely what Pete Hegseth plans on doing, right? The fact that a white supremacist is the Secretary of Defense is insane to me. The man literally has tattoos on his body. When you pair all of that together, and then you map that onto Black folks trying to squeeze our dark selves into white clothing, so to speak, or white skin, it doesn't work. And I think part of our frustration as a group of people, as a demographic, is the fact that we were never meant to fit these clothes anyway. And perhaps we need to do things differently. I don't know. That's just me, like, freestyling and thinking, like, not even necessarily like, I'm just coming off the top of my head and thinking through it out loud.
You think we the only ones trying to fight this fight, Antwann? Because I firmly believe anybody who moved to this country, they didn't come here to fight the fight. They came here to go along with the game and get whatever they can out of it, and maybe send it back home to their home country or something. But nobody came
Rock,
here.
they don't have to fight, brother, because we've done all the fighting, and niggas are tired. Oh shit, am I allowed to say that on here? I think I am. Okay, but we are tired. You know what I mean? Like, so they don't have to, like, let's keep this a buck. And this, folks come here, get rights, they can get access to visas, they can get all of that. Why? Because of what we put down in the civil rights movement. You understand what I'm saying? Folks get access to their Second Amendment rights. Why? Because we do not have access to our Second Amendment rights because of the Deacons of Defense and the Black Panthers taking up arms, and they think that Black people should not have access to arms. And that's why I started off saying that I'm proud of us in this moment, because I really don't see too many Black people on the forefront saying we got to fight. Hell no. We are tired. Let the ship go down. Y'all figure that shit out and get this. What we know and what history bears out is that a lot of these other demographics do not know how to organize. They do not know how to operationalize a catalyst for a movement. We know how to do that shit. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so they don't come here saying we have to fight. They come here saying we got to take advantage of ABC and XYZ because all those black people over there got their asses beaten. They got blood drawn. They made it possible. We're going to take advantage of it because the United States is willing to give it to us at their expense. And so black people are carrying out the weight of democratic sacrifice in our bodies, and we are fucking tired. What else do you want from us?
I got a question for you. Um, so this is related to both the 14th Amendment and affirmative action, because this is everybody's been running from this lineage movement, right? But I remember when
Hold on,
the
which
affirmative
movement?
action, the lineage movement, where Black Americans are actually having getting ethnic pride,
Oh, uh-huh.
right? Everybody's running from it, right? But it keeps rearing its ugly head everywhere, including the Drake and Kendrick battle, right? So in the affirmative action, and this ties back to DEI as well. In the affirmative action, uh, when they struck it down and they had, I think it's 237 pages of notes or whatnot. I think Clarence Thomas mentioned, I'm paraphrasing, but he pretty much mentioned like, hey, what it is to be black doesn't mean what it meant years ago. So maybe just saying black isn't enough anymore. Like if you was a Negro or a freedman, maybe that would be enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the first part. That was what they mentioned in I think it's page 90 something. I forgot what page it was. And then you circle back to this 14th Amendment, right? And everybody's I'm sorry, the DEI. Let's go to DEI. And when it comes to DEI, a lot of that was kicked off with he gave the speech on Howard's campus for affirmative action. I forgot, President Johnson, was Lyndon B. Johnson to get his speech on Howard. I might be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. My brain is freezing.
It was LBJ.
Okay, right, right. So then that spins into DEI, and I mentioned earlier about how they pretty much you say they can't organize like us, but they also don't have the cultural cachet. They don't have the history with this country to kind of get leverage to get stuff pushed over like a lot of other groups. Some do, most don't. Like not especially not like us.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why they're kind of high. I can say high behind us, but they'll let us be the battering ram to knock the door down, and then they'll push black people out the way, and then everybody else will run in and get the goodies, and we still getting up off the floor trying to get stuff. And I think, and then fast forward to the 14th Amendment with the they just said it the other day. The 14th Amendment was for free slaves, was to legitimize free slaves as citizens. All right. Now let me know if I'm wrong, but I read it. That's my understanding. That's what it's supposed to be. And now, and it served its purpose in the moment, but it's been a major loophole, as in, hey, you pop a kid out in America, you're American. It's kind of been a big loophole that a lot of people have taken advantage of, as
Mm-hmm.
far as like birth tourism and whatnot. So I'm saying all that to say that a lot of this stuff is getting struck down, but every time it gets struck down, it seems like they always circle back and say, hey, well, actually, technically, this was supposed to be for Black Americans, for African Americans. This wasn't supposed to be for everybody. And so I just wonder, I could be naive and even think this line of thinking. I'm just wondering, is there an opportunity for Black Americans to renegotiate or maybe come back to the table? Like maybe something kind of got a little out of hand. Like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
this is supposed to be for this one person. We look up, it's 200 people at the table. And no, that it wasn't for those 200, it was for this one person. Get the whole table out. Everybody leave, right? Okay, now that everybody gone, DEI gone, affirmative action gone. We kicked everybody out, right? 14th Amendment kicked everybody out. Now let's go back to who this is for, who this was originally intended for.
Mm-hmm.
Black Americans who come from slavery, come back in the room. Let's talk about this again and try this one more time. I wonder if there's an opportunity for that. I could be naive 100% and even thinking that these folks would be down with that kind of conversation. But part of me wonders. The only reason I even halfway believe it is because part of me feels like they feel the tab got too big.
Mm-hmm.
We did this to black people, but then we said we resolve it by giving it to minorities. We look at the table, it ain't just Black Americans there, it's minorities there. We got white women sitting there, every race is sitting there, but the only people that are supposed to be at that table is Black America. This tab is getting too big. Maybe we come out better. I'm thinking logically, maybe I'm wrong or naive. I'm thinking like, hey, they would think maybe we come out better just kick everybody off the table. We could cut our losses and just deal strictly with them,
Mhm.
like it was intended for. Now, what do you think? I know that's a shot in the hell, but I don't know. I just part of me feel like it's a window opening in all of this chaos of actually redefining this and getting it back to the demographic it was intended for.
I, I don't feel like you're wrong, and I just want to say this real quick is because America is a business, unfortunately, as we say
Hmm.
that. It is ran as a business. And with you saying that the tab got too big, that's exactly what I feel has happened. And so now if you talk to a good old boy, and y'all know who I mean, a good old boy. If you run
Hmm.
into a good old boy at a store, at a anywhere, one of the first things, every encounter that I've had with a good old boy, especially here in Florida, you want me to tell you what's the first thing they say to me?
Hmm.
Not knowing that, hey, my wife is a Puerto Rican. They don't care. They say to me because they look at me and they say, I miss the old days when it was just good old black and white.
Mm. Mm.
I've encountered, I can't even count how many good old boys I've ran into who has said that to me.
Mm.
Not necessarily meaning that, oh, it was equal. When he says good old days, he means we stayed on our side of the tracks, they stayed on their side of the tracks. And there was nobody else coming into America that it was growing, because as the others grow, they start to decline in number. And so they didn't mind so much when we had all this black movement. It was when the others started getting included into the movement, the national advancement for colored people. It should have never been the national advancement for colored people. It should have been black people. But we always want to include everybody in our causes. That's our biggest problem. We include everybody in our causes. You don't see Asians creating an organization, as Antwann said, they don't know how to. Nobody knows how to organize like us. You don't see the Asians, Latinos, whoever else, the Black Caribbean people, Black Africans that come over here create something that includes Black Americans. That don't happen. That does not happen at
Mm.
all. So I'm with you on that. The tab was just getting a bit too big. Go ahead, Antwann.
Well, yes and no, because
You don't agree with me, brother. Don't hurt yourself agreeing with me now.
uh, yes, America is a business. Is America thinking the tab got too big to pay for it? Yes, right. But no, on the other hand, in that this is how the law was written. Right. So now you have to ask yourself that in 1865, were what was Congress necessarily thinking that there was going to be this wide expansion like this? Not necessarily, because they still conceived of the nation state as a white man state. And our reparations, listen, black people, the reparations was freedom. That's it.
Mm,
Ain't no check coming.
mm,
Okay. They
I
said
ain't giving up on the check, bro.
they,
I ain't
they,
giving up on the check.
they said, we gave y'all freedom that cost us our profits. That is the reparation, right? So that was America's expense in that particular moment. However, and now this is where critical race theory comes into play. Now, the moment that Rock, is talking about, like, he would like to believe is, could maybe somewhat be possible, right? Becomes impossible, because to do that, by definition of the law, you are then discriminating against other racialized groups on behalf of another group.
No, but it's not race, and that's what they was mentioning in I forgot the exact document that follows when it struck down affirmative action. Pretty much, they was saying, "Hey, we can't do this race and this is part of the whole
But that's the
reparation
problem,
conversation."
though, right?
Right. Let me just get that. This what they said in the whole reparations conversation is if they try to present anything based on race, it's getting thrown out. So it ain't happening by race, but it can happen by lineage. It can happen by ethnicity, right? Because like I said, we all black Africans and Caribbeans, we all black, but we all ain't African American descendants from slaves. And so there was notes, like I mentioned, there was notes in the affirmative action notes, and like I said, they mentioned it with the 14th Amendment. Say, hey, this wasn't supposed to be for everybody. It's supposed to be for free slaves. So they can do it by lineage, but they can't. They refuse. It ain't happening by race. That's what I mean. So that's been the whole conversation with the that's been one of the main points with the reparation movement is you got to get away from race because it's a dead end. It ain't happening with race, and a lot of people still trying to push it with race, and it ain't happening. It got to be through lineage, which is our ethnicity of Black Americans, African Americans, whatever you want to call it.
But
What you,
that
what you think?
but that is whatever you want to call it. But that is the exact problem, right? That's the catch 22. I hear you, and I definitely understand what you're saying. But law as it is written is that you cannot commit a harm against another group. That's called disparate impact. That is like a literal legal concept. You cannot cause harm to another group. So even if we say, okay, well, when we do the calculus for the 14th Amendment, right? And we're just saying a hypothetical here, because let's be real, we know the nation ain't gonna do this shit. But
Mm-hmm.
Right.
in the event for the sake of thinking through it, and if we're gonna talk about, letter by the law, disparate impact then comes into play. Because you cannot say that, okay, the law was meant for those of African descent, because the Constitution does not express that clearly. It just ratifies and say those who are born in or naturalized, and that the
Mm-hmm.
founding fathers would have had to shape and form the law in a specific way that says those who are of the descendants, right, of those who were enslaved in the United States would be citizens. But there's a problem with that. Why? They shot their own self in the foot because they did not document our foreparents. They were property. So it was no way to track who was really a descendant and who was not, because all Black people in the United States were not enslaved. Most were, but not all, right? So then when we fast forward to 2025, even though we're in January, but and having that conversation, if I am in another group, my legal claim then becomes, but for me, I'm just going to make something up, but for me being Latino, I would be privileged by the 14th Amendment. That generates a disparate claim. That means that a lawsuit or type of legal action has had an adverse impact on a racialized group and therefore materialized as racism itself facilitated by the nation state, right? That's why that wouldn't take place. All the while, the rights of white people are still recognized and reinforced, even when we are talking about quote unquote color blind approaches. Because to
Mm-hmm.
be neutral is to be white, right? So that's the caveat that we get ourselves caught up in. Now, that's not to say that I disagree with you. I'm
Mm-hmm.
just giving you, like, the legal argument and how a court would push back on that, because you can't cause that type of adverse impact on all of these various different groups and say, okay, you now have to get out because you are not a descendant of those who were enslaved within the United
Yeah.
States.
I,
If
I
that
wouldn't
makes
think
any
that they
sense.
would. I wouldn't think they would make it retroactive. I think it would be like moving forward. I mean, I could be wrong on that. I
Now
thought
we
maybe
talking
we.
about Trump.
But look, Antoine, when you say that they didn't document us, I've listened to. I've been following the reparation space for I don't know, maybe 2018,
Hmm.
maybe 2017, 2018. And one of the things that came up is, well, how you know? How do you know? How do you know? Right? Which is it ain't that hard to tell, right? Because the easiest thing is talk to your grandparent. My grandma just passed 2 weeks ago. I talked to her. She was born in 37. You talked to her. Her dad was born in like the 19 early 19 like 19 something, right? His dad. So it ain't you don't we don't have to go back that far to figure out to get back to slavery, right? And the other thing was. Now I haven't done this personally, but I've heard stories and people talking about how they figure stuff out. They said that as far as being documented go as slaves, because slaves had to be insured, some people found like documents, found their tree line, their family tree via that, like they were well documented because the slaves themselves were property, and the property was insured. So there is it's ways out there to figure out how to get back, because eight was it 1865? It ain't that far back as we think, especially when if you give the context of like our grandparents, like I said, my grandma was born in 37, and what 65, 37, that's about 70 years before my grandma. So it's not even like it's like that far away, you know. So it's definitely possible to trace it back. Some people, I mean, especially if you still live in like the South, like most black people live in the South. I mean, if you live close to Virginia, I'm in Georgia. I mean, we ain't that far away from where them plantations was. Louisiana, we not that far away. Now it's a matter of finding the info, but I don't think it's a tall task too bad for most Black Americans to you know, find out how, at least go back at least to like 19. That's not 19. I say 1890. I think most can get back close to that just by going their grandparents.
Hmm.
Now, once you get past that, it might be a little tricky, but I don't. We can get pretty far fairly easy before it gets kind of tough.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
there's definitely, I agree. There's definitely records that can be, tracked down. Like you said, most Black peoples can reach into the late 1800s, maybe the mid 1800s. With their families. Where the problem is going to come in, for most, and thinking through the hypothetical, is that really before the Civil War goes down, because as you stated, most enslaved people are documented as property. The first census really in the United States isn't really until 1790, but slavery had been going on long before
hmm
1790 in the United States, right? We only say
hmm
1619 because we privilege English world history. But what do you do when St. Augustine is under the rule of Spain and they built St. Augustine, Florida, way before Jamestown, right? And you have
hmm
Black folks who were enslaved down there. And so what does that look like in tracing that lineage, right?
hmm
Um, all that to say is, is this 14th Amendment thing going to stick? No, it's not going to stick. It's
Nah,
it's
it won't.
it's
It won't.
way too it's way too difficult. You're dealing with the Constitution of the United States, and I am not too sure that the United States is willing to let Donald Trump, of all people, tilt the nation. Even though, hell, we might as well. I mean, we're there. Um, but nonetheless, I think that we are in a perilous moment. But shout out to Black people who know how to survive in this moment and how to organize and how to get what we
Yeah,
need.
Black people gonna be okay. I know they acting like the sky falling, which it is to a certain degree, kind of. But we'll be okay. We'll be okay. I ain't say it'll be easy, but
I mean,
we'll be
I
okay.
mean, hey, the black jobs are now opening back up.
I hey,
You know what?
Hey, listen,
I cannot.
I'm hey,
Oh
I'm
my
just being
god.
honest now. I'm not listen. I'm not an advocate for either parties. They all have their evils and things like that. But I do think that as a people, and when I say as a people, I'm talking about Black people, we have to start strategically looking at the possible candidates and not going into it blindfolded and thinking that, oh well, you know what, I'm not going to go with this party because they're they're historically racist, but this party is still historically racist as well. They just keep their hoods on. The other party, they take their hoods off and let you know who they are. You know
hmm
what I mean? So I think that we as Black folks, we need to, number one, plan for better leaders, sit down and have a real conversation, and not think that everything is going to get solved on social media.
Right, and just one real quick, Keith. I meant to mention this last time about related to what you were just saying. I remember Roland Martin. I still listen to Roland Martin, even though he get on my nerves, but I listen to him though because he do know some
God
stuff.
bless you.
He knows some stuff, so I
God bless you.
you know. But he did mention this. Of course, this is after Kamala lost. He did mention that once you get under the age of 40 with Black voters, less and less actually identify as Democrat openly. they said most of them could just say they're independent. So I'm not sure if the change that we're looking for, Keith, as far as like black people kind of like really taking a step back and really making these folks earn our vote for real, for real. I'm not sure if that's gonna happen with our generation, but I think the next generation is really. I think the ball is kind of rolling in the direction that the Democratic Party don't really would prefer for it not to be rolling right now. And I think uh, maybe we'll see this stuff like with our younger sisters or younger brothers, younger siblings, kids or whatnot. Maybe they'll be the ones to really get these folks to do something for us for the vote. You know.
Well, I'm going to say something that's going to sound controversial. I'm okay with that because that's who I am, and I can say this because I'm involved in a interracial relationship.
Hmm.
The waters is getting muddied now. We seeing half breeds all over the place.
Oh,
Oh, that too.
oh God.
I'm saying so. To your point, we're seeing these half breeds pop up. How can we expect for the next generation, Rock, to fight for what we've been fighting for when they're coming up in mixed households?
Now wait a minute.
Oh, oh, not even. No, you saying mixed racially wise? I'm gonna say
That's
mixed
what he's
ethnic
saying.
wise.
That's why I'm saying. That's why I said, wait a minute.
Yeah, I'll even say mixed ethnic wise because a lot of folks who come up like a lot of black people who move to America don't really ain't really in line with black Americans like that. So
At
when
all.
if you have I've seen it, you have like a African dad and a black American mom or vice versa or whatnot. A lot of them sound they in the same boat with the biracial kids, like the way so and this all circles back, Antwann, when you said who speaks for Black America,
Mm,
because Black America is changing and keep this is part it's kind of part of what I was wanted to say in response, but Black America is changing, but we are putting our heads in the sand and acting like it's still 1982,
mm,
right? It's not. This ain't the same Black America. Just like you said, the good old boy, he said it was just us and them. This ain't just the old America where this just when you see a black person, it's a black person from US slavery. This that those days been gone. You know,
yeah.
or if you see a black person, that's a person with two black parents. Like those days been gone. Like
Hmm.
it's so like so much like mixing, so intertwined or whatnot. And then I feel like that's also contributing to like I don't want to say identity crisis, but just the tug of war of where's Black America going now? Because you got certain people who step up
Absolutely.
and want to speak, but if you look at them and say, well, hold on, man, you kind of thinking like, why you think that way? And then you
Right.
realize, oh, you got a white mama, okay. Or another person says something that just kind of it don't really align traditionally with how African Americans think, and then you say,
Hmm.
hey, well, why hold on, why you saying that? And then you realize, oh, one of your parents, okay, they might get an African daddy. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
for the
So
Caribbean. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, so
absolutely.
yeah, so it's there is a real big like who speaks for Black America, and I'm gonna be real with you, man. And this one thing that kind of shocked me when you look up and you look at who had the biggest voices and who have the biggest voices in Black America. Yeah, usually African Americans. I'm gonna say usually, a lot of times it ain't African
Hmm.
Americans, and that wouldn't fly.
Absolutely.
That would not fly in any other country for any other
Well,
set of Black people.
well, look at who our president was that everybody tout. Barack was raised by his racist ass grandparents.
Yeah, yeah,
You
and
know what I mean? So
I
how
yep, yep.
before he met Michelle, he wasn't integrated in black culture or dealing with black people. Hell, I
Yeah,
don't even think after Michelle he dealt with him because that was his family. He
yeah.
probably ain't got to deal with him no more because well, I ain't gonna get
Mhm.
into it, but
I
mhm.
I think Barack was I think Barack was the one that triggered that. Yep. I think Barack was the one that really opened people's eyes of who's speaking for us, like,
Right.
and where they come from, and because where you come from and your upbringing and your family that informs who you are and your
Absolutely.
that and how you feel about stuff. And a lot of times we just realizing that the people who's speaking for us they don't come from what we come from,
Yes.
and that's
And that's a big disconnect, right?
yep.
With not just different race, but the black, and we had this conversation on Tuesday with Short This Podcast. The black non-Americans view us one way. we view them another way. They feel like we don't know where we come from, and we feel like they've taken advantage of what we have fought for when they come over here. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And they feel like we're not appreciative, and we feel like they're stuck up. So there's a disconnect there.
Yeah, yeah. So, but I will say, there's a crazy as it sound. I do believe, and this just might be me being naive. There is opportunity in all of this chaos that's gonna be going on over the next 4 months. So, and I know that might be
Them
naive,
jobs,
but
them
it,
black jobs, brother. They opening up.
Right.
There's opportunity.
You know what? You know what? Between
Antwann, they was
between
down there on Hiawassee and 50 rounding them up. Them black jobs open.
I cannot. But between
hey,
black jobs reopening and half breeds, I just,
I mean, this is where we're going, right? I mean, this is we're seeing more of the Drakes, the Patrick Mahomes,
oh, look at the NBA. Look at the
the
NBA.
NBA. Yeah, it's really so. That's why I said that, because we don't really know what the black voice is going to look like past our generation.
Now that's gonna be something to see. And
Yeah.
it's gonna be a tug of war, boy. It's gonna get ugly. They've been trying to keep that conversation down. It's gonna get ugly, and I promise you, it just spilled over. Drake
Well,
Drake said it. Come to America to imitate the heritage. How many features till you feel like you're black enough? C- Uh,
well,
dude, Drake
well.
was
Let me say
calling the
something,
man
Rock.
that. I'm not
Well,
Drake.
let me say
Sorry,
this.
Kendrick.
But let me say this though, Rock. I will say, to the other side of what I was saying about the mixed breeds and things like that, the big difference is the kids that do identify as, even though they may have a white mama, a black white dad, or whatever, they're a mix. Those that are really in tune with their history, they're much more radicalized than we are,
Oh yeah, yeah,
and that's
yeah,
going to be a
yeah.
problem for the ones that the anti the right that's rising up right now. That's going to be a problem for the Barron Trumps that's coming up, because your little homeboy that you was in daycare with, yeah, he had a little wild hair. He almost was close to your color, but he's really in tune with what we was, and he's not going to have a problem knocking you out and revolutionizing and bringing everybody together. And the ones that he looks like that, he's not going to take the same approach as the Barack Obamas and others, and he'll be able to bring everyone together with the same ideas and thoughts more so than we are. We're just too black. Can I say that? We look too black to move this nation forward, and that's a that's not something easy to say, but that's a hard reality. We're just too black, even for our own people. If we really want to be really deep into it, and I don't want to keep going with this because we need to wrap up, but we're not. We're a little bit too dark for our own people. We feel safer when it is the lighter complexion running for office, because I can guarantee, even with the black vote, if who was a
I
prominent
I
black
like.
man when Barack was running?
Oh,
Uh,
okay. Well,
I
Bakari
can't think of
Sellers,
it. Yeah,
Morehouse, man. Bakari
but I'm
Sellers.
saying he won't get that. He would never get the popular vote from black people like that. Barack was
True.
safe, and it was the skin tone. It wasn't. It was. I don't care what anybody else said. It was the skin tone. That skin tone made black people feel safe enough to convince their white friends and others that, hey, this is a safe black to vote for.
Yeah, well, Barack messed it up for everybody after him, including Kamala. He messed it up for everybody after him. So, you know, it is what it is.
Well, fellas, I do appreciate. I done left Antwann speechless, and that's a first, guys.
Hey, really quick, Antwann, how you
yes,
making that with
sir.
them fires, man? How you making that with them fires?
I'm thankful. There was a small fire down the way from me at an oil field, but thankfully they got there really quickly because that would have been disastrous. The most
Hmm.
I had was like there was a lot of smoke coming into my home. Like
Mm.
it was thick, like I was choking inside my house. So I didn't even like leave. So, but thankfully I made out okay. There's just a lot of rebuilding that has to be done, including like the entire black community of Altadena. Um, it just
Hmm.
that was like pretty much the area where Jackie Robinson was at when he was out here. But
Okay.
thankfully, I made out okay. So thank you for asking.
Okay, no problem. Good to see you. Good here.
Antwann, I know you love California, but as the
I
great
do.
old Negro movie and the spiritual hymn before that's before the spiritual hymn was starting, that great Negro movie, God is trying to tell you something. You better
You
get
ain't
up out of
telling me to come to
California.
Ron DeSantis.
No, I ain't telling you come here, but you better get out of California. I ain't never seen a state have so many atrocities over the years. Either the earth is moving and separating, y'all on fire every year,
That's because we have a fire season, just like Florida has a
or you
hurricane
slide.
season.
It's
We ain't got hurricane
right by
season
the
like that.
ocean, right by the ocean, and be on fire too.
And
I
y'all
know that's
Florida by the
something
sliding,
different.
ocean, Georgia
y'all
by the
mud,
ocean.
y'all mud sliding all over the way. Listen.
You know what the funny part is though? What's so interesting to
Mm,
your point?
mhm.
Not only did the fires happen, but like after the fires like happened, we had an earthquake early the morning the next day, and then the next weekend,
I
like
heard
as
about
in
that.
this weekend that just passed, we woke up and it was hailing outside.
See,
What?
see,
It was the
yeah,
craziest weather pattern. I was like, "What is this?" Like I woke and there were like little chunks of ice on the
mm.
sidewalk because it was hailing, like the sky had opened up.
They gonna start raining frogs too in a little bit too.
Listen.
No.
Well, the Lord say He gonna destroy it with fire. Listen, guys, thank you all so much for joining me
I don't know what
today.
happened today. I don't know what happened here today. We went all over the place.
We went all over the place, but that's okay. This was a great conversation. I can't wait to have you guys back. I think this is week 2 into what we're trying to see what Black America's going to look like. So probably in a couple of months, we're going to see what month 2 or 3 looks like, and I'm sure it's going to look a hell of a lot different than what it looks like right now. Thank you, gentlemen, so much. As usual, the conversation was great. Really appreciate it, and can't wait to have you both back on. This has been Conversations with Ronnie Keith.